This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Patterson and Michael Remis.
Hey now, welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Michael Remis in the host chair for the final time before Hustler returns tomorrow from Costa Rica. If you missed it, Hustler and Jeff Hamilton did a special edition of CFL 110 discussing CFL free agency. Check it out on our YouTube channel. We'll come out on our podcast feed later this evening, or subscribe to the CFL 110 podcast feed. Just search on your favorite podcast provider. I'll be joined by Connor Hrabchak shortly, but the Winnipeg Jets coming off an overtime loss 4-3 to Dallas last night. Bit of a deja vu, 4-3. Same score as Game 6 from May that eliminated the Jets. Thomas Harley scoring the OT winner again. The Jets forcing overtime late. But it was a good effort from the Jets, but for a team whose playoff chances are dwindling, under 3% on Mike Kelly of Sportlogic's model. They needed to get a 2 points, did not get that, and left you feeling quite similar again. The overtime, a problem for the Winnipeg Jets. Is it a crisis? We'll talk later on throughout the show with that. But 0-8, 8-game losing streak for the Winnipeg Jets in overtime this year. That could be 8 standings points. You combine that with the 11-game losing streak, you can point to some big areas for the Jets this year. But we have a great show coming up. A lot of NHL news. Olympics around the corner. Trade deadline around, when they come back in March. They do have the roster freeze coming up. Talk about all that with Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period. He's in Tampa. Took in the Stadium Series game. Murat of The Athletic. Full Jets breakdown. Very interesting conversation with Rod Paulson and Rick Brownlee about the 1920 Winnipeg Falcons gold medal Olympic team. This is the 150th anniversary of the Icelandic settlement in Manitoba. The Olympics just around the corner. I'm sure many of you remember Canada rocking the Winnipeg Falcons jerseys in the 2004 World Cup, so we'll get a bit of a history lesson from them. And Jake Bullen-Moss of Coolbet as we tee up Super Bowl week, and a little special there for loyal WST listeners who want to sprinkle a little bit on the Super Bowl. You can double your deposit up to $60 using code WSTSB60 at Coolbet. That bonus code will run until kickoff. Thank you to our sponsors who make this show possible. Without them, well, we wouldn't be here doing this today. Winnipeg Jets will be we will be Winnipeg Sports Group at the Jets game tomorrow. WinnipegJets.com/WST for tickets. Jets Habs tomorrow night. Uptown Alley, Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental, Canadian Club, Princess Auto, Chuds, Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and Coolbet. Pleased to bring in the host of WST Postgame Reaction, the host of WST Sunday Live, and our Winnipeg Jets reporter. You see him on our socials doing some great video work there. Connor Hrabchak looking sharp today with the Dale Howard-Chuck hat. Connor, what's going on? Welcome. Great chatting with you here for the last time before Hustler returns.
Yes, great chatting with you as well on the post game last night. That was a blast. That was a really fun hockey game yesterday. The Jets ultimately don't get the win, and maybe if you're your team tank or team ethical tank, you're okay with that. You know, Hustler was talking about that a week ago. Maybe you just kind of shrug your shoulders. They lost again. We'll see how that goes. But really fun hockey game last night. Thomas Harley scores the OT winner. Hellebuck was mad after the fact. Cole Perfetti and Gabriel Velarde each get a primary assist on each other's goals to give the Jets a 2-1 lead in the second period, and back and forth. And I see some people commenting in chat, and I totally agree. You know, I can't wait to ask Murat from The Athletic about this today as well, because, you know, this team, where they are in the standings, there's, you know, is there going to be sort of that sigh and that collective, like, oh, we're not going to make the playoffs, so we're not going to back check us hard, we're not going to do this. And this team's not quitting. I mean, last night's game against the top 5 team on the road against Dallas, Central Division opponent, and they gave Dallas everything they had last night. So I thought that was a really fun hockey game, and glad to talk about it even more today.
2-1-1 on this road trip, and I think that's what's so confusing about the Winnipeg Jets this year. They've had games where they've played top teams tight, but ultimately, you know, over and over, they come up short by a goal, scoring, you know, a problem at times. They were able to get, the 3 in regulation, but overtime, major problem. 8 straight losses in overtime. Is this, you know, variance, Connor, or is this something that should be a very big concern for the Winnipeg Jets when looking to improve for next season?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, Remis, and you and I were talking about this last night, but when looking back at this Winnipeg Jets season, when we look back in the summer, it's going to be one of the most puzzling things to look back and look at the Jets' overtime record and have it be in the negatives. Like, this team last year, you throw out Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey, and they were scoring, and they were beating everyone in overtime, and you thought, just get to OT because the Jets are so awesome in overtime. That was their superpower last year. And now it's completely swung back the other way. As you said, 8 straight losses in both overtime and shootouts. Like, after regulation, the Jets have lost 8 straight. And it's interesting, Remis. I mean, I think they're getting looks in overtime. Mark Scheifele has the breakaway last night, and Jake Ottinger makes a great save. You look at some of the other games as well, maybe outside of the Utah one, where Utah scored 10 seconds in. A lot of these are going 1 or 2 minutes, and the Jets are getting a possession with the puck. They're getting a good chance with one of their best players, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, are getting a good look. They're just not going in, and then the other teams are capitalizing on their chances. That's kind of just the nature of overtime. It's a coin flip either way. You hope that your players can bury on their great chances before the other team can. And this season, and especially so as of late, it seems like the Winnipeg Jets just aren't burying those chances that they are getting in overtime, and it's resulted in 8 straight post-regulation losses for the team, which, like I said, when we look back at this season, that's going to be one of the more puzzling things for me, that the Jets' once great superpower of being awesome in overtime has now completely kind of gone away, and they seem to be a team that struggles in the 3-on-3 period, Remis.
Yeah, I think the lack of secondary scoring maybe a bit exposed in overtime. That's been a problem for the Jets all season, although Cole Perfetti has really shown up the last couple games, and I mentioned this on our post-game. We kind of went in depth. Like, they started a couple overtimes now with Adam Lowry and Cole Perfetti. I think if you want to give yourself the best chance to win, you're better off starting Scheifele and Connor. You know, you can maximize the number of shifts for them. You know, while they were on for the goal against, they were also, you know, generated a breakaway. They've generated a number of chances in overtime, but haven't been able to put it in the back of the net for 8 straight. Let's hear from head coach Scott Arniel on the game. Here he is. This is last night, and shout out to Ken Wiebe from the Free Press, who was there asking the big questions.
Yeah, you know what? That was a game that was winnable. You know, second period we got up 2-1, and you know, really we got sloppy with and without the puck. You know, especially through the neutral zone. But at the end of the day, we hung in there and had a pretty good third period. I know they scored that goal, but we found a way to get ourselves back at the end, having a chance and to try to get 2 points. And at the end of the day, it's you know, okay. I mean, you really hope to find a way to finish those off. We had Scheif on a breakaway, and maybe that was the look we were hoping for.
Scheif on a breakaway, maybe the look they were hoping for. Didn't quite get it done, and we did have a very visibly upset Connor Hrabchak after that one, Connor, and Scott Arniel mentioning that his mask came off after the slap shot right before Scheifele's breakaway. I mean, it seemed to be fine for the breakaway, and then all of a sudden Dallas gets the puck back and he's not fine. I don't know if the ref didn't see it. I don't know if Hrabchak's yelling at him right after the Scheifele breakaway, but he was hot. I hope we hear from him soon for his explanation on that one.
Yeah, it's interesting because he takes the shot to the mask, and that's clearly when the strap comes undone on the back of his helmet. And then shortly after, the Winnipeg Jets end up on that breakaway that Scott O'Neill just talked about. Mark Scheifele, the best chance of overtime for the Winnipeg Jets. So if they had blown it dead when the Jets got possession of the puck, I think we all would have been angry that they blew it dead when Mark Scheifele had a clear-cut breakaway. And then when Dallas gets the puck back, well, are you going to blow it dead when the other team has possession in overtime? I don't know what the rules are there. So clearly Connor Hrabchak felt that it should have been blown dead at some point. Maybe he didn't think that it should have been on the breakaway for the Jets, but maybe when Dallas had it in the defensive zone or neutral zone or something along those lines. But clearly, yeah, you don't see Connor Hrabchak get that angry very often. And Remis, between the Thomas Harley overtime winner and Connor Hrabchak having a mask controversy in Dallas, there was a lot of negative flashbacks last night for the Winnipeg Jets against the Dallas Stars. Obviously, there was the Harley OT winner in Game 6 last year. We don't need to talk about that. But then the Hrabchak mask coming off in Dallas goal late in a couple of years ago that he was angry about for that too. So I don't know. A lot of things happened last night that just reminded me of past unfortunate events for the Winnipeg Jets.
I used to love the Dallas Stars Pantera goal song, but yes, it just brings back a lot of negative feelings during that. And, seeing Alex Petrovic's name in the lineup last night, yes, a lot of reminders about that Game 6 and that series that the Winnipeg Jets had against Dallas. So we mentioned the road trip. They're returning home tomorrow night. The Jets host the Canadiens, final game before the Olympic break at Canada Life Centre. They went 2-1-1. I think you liked the way they played against Florida. This game, played well. Here's Scott O'Neill on the road trip.
Yeah, we need points, right? We had we'd like to have them all, but at the end of the day, we went into some real tough buildings, really tough buildings, and I like the way we played and for most of it, and a couple of periods here and there, but at the end of the day, I like the effort. I love how we're kind of staying in games and competing and doing the right things to gain points.
Talking about playing fast in Florida, do you feel like you're able to do that again today?
Yeah, we did, except for the second. The second we kind of got sloppy with the puck, so it did slow us down, and they kind of turned it up, and then our coverage to the neutral zone kind of got on the wrong side of people. But at the end of the day, that is how you have to play. We have to play consistently so that you're putting the opposition on their heels. And I thought a lot of these, even the Tampa game, the Florida game, and even at times to this one, we did a good job of that.
Winnipeg Jets doing a good job, but I think too little, too late in terms of playoff hopes. While not mathematically eliminated, Mike Kelly of Sportlogic putting out his simulating it 2,500 times, says the Winnipeg Jets going into last night had under 3% chance, so they would need to win just about every game. I haven't done the math, but it's quite a bit. So the Jets in a real tough spot here, Connor. And, we mentioned going into the game, we weren't really sure how the lines, they didn't have a full morning skate. It did start off Gus Nyquist on the top line, Scheifele and Connor, but that eventually got changed, and Alex Iafallo going back. What did you make of the Gus Nyquist experiment there on the top line?
Yeah, short-lived. He got a few shifts in the third period and then goes up for the Dallas game. And next thing you know, I think it only lasted 2 periods. And then Alex Iafallo was right back up there on the top line. And again, I'll be interested to ask Murat about it later on, because to me, I was joking about it going into the Florida game that it's a Gustav Nyquist showcase game, but the fact that he went right up to the top line and they're trying to get some offense out of him, I feel like it maybe did have a little bit of that from the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff. See if this guy can bring anything, as he is a pending UFA, and the Jets only have 6 games between now and the trade deadline. And he hadn't been playing. He had been a healthy scratch in 12 of 14 before he got in against the Florida Panthers, made the nice play on the 3-on-2 for the winner in Florida. But clearly, this line, when they were out there last night, they were getting pretty caved in. They're going up against Rantanen. They're going up against Wyatt Johnston. These players are Jason Robertson, big Team USA snub. These guys are elites. They're at home too. They controlled the matchup. Maybe they got some out there in some extended shifts the Scheifele line did. But the shots on goal with the Scheifele line on the ice last night, 8-2 in favor of Dallas. They were on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal against. Scoring chances were 8-1 in Dallas's favor with that Nyquist version of the top line out there. So that's the trade-off, right? You put Gustav Nyquist up there. You're hoping for kind of an all-offense trio that can score 1 or 2 5-on-5 goals and maybe make up for the defensive deficiencies that they'd have as a trio, but they didn't make it up last night. Dallas did a great job. Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Harley, some of the elite defenders on their team did a great job shutting them down. And then when the Jets and that line is out there in an extended defensive zone shift, that's not good. That's not good for business. 6 high danger chances given up by that line just through 2 periods as well. So not a great showing for the Gustav Nyquist top line experiment. Made a nice play against Florida, but then on the road against Dallas, a very good team, maybe it got exposed a little bit.
Gus Nyquist, had the big season a couple of years ago, struggled last year. He thought they'd bring him in. He could give some production. Doesn't have a goal this year. And, hey, you think when you sign him out as a UFA, if it doesn't work out, you could always trade him at the deadline. I can't imagine his value very high. Maybe there is a GM out there who said, hey, we can bring in this veteran player, give us some scoring depth for minimal cost. So I'm curious what's going to happen with there before the deadline. One player, we've already talked about him, made a huge impact last night. I gave him the hardest working Jet on our post-game reaction. Cole Perfetti, 1 goal, 1 assist, 11 points in his last 17 games, scored on the power play. He was your pick for a point when we went over the cool bed lines, Connor. And, the Jets, do they have something here with this Lowry, Velarde, Perfetti line? They were looking pretty good, and some secondary scoring that the Jets haven't had all season. And Cole Perfetti seems to be emerging, after starting the season very slow following the high ankle sprain.
Yeah, totally. And on going into yesterday's game, we talked about how he had more points in January than the other 2 games combined, or other 2 months combined, in December and in November, when he just wasn't the same from the high ankle sprain. And you put him with Gabriel Velarde. I've talked a lot this week with Hustler Away about Gabriel Velarde and how great that he's been sliding down to the second line and getting a guy like Cole Perfetti going. It's been impressive. And last night, Remis, or yesterday on the show, on the Cool Bet Lines, I brought up Perfetti for a point because he was on the power play. And then he got that first assist at 5-on-5. And I said, I didn't even need the power play point. And then the very next play was Cole Perfetti scoring on the power play. So a nice 2-point night for Cole Perfetti, a goal and an assist. Like you said, 11 points in his last 17 games. And that 17 game pace puts him at a 53 point pace over an 82 game sample. So right around where he was at last season. Obviously, coming into this year before the high ankle sprain, we all had very high hopes for Perfetti to be a breakout player in the Winnipeg Jets forward group. And it's taken him a while to get back to the player he was last season. But I think it's safe to say that he's back to the player he was last year. And now it's time for him to take another step forward. That's what you're hoping to see in the final couple games of the season, or 20, 25 or so games of the season. And then a massive contract discussion will be had between the Jets and Cole Perfetti, who's a pending RFA this offseason. What does that contract look like? He struggled so much, but the high ankle sprain clearly affected him, Remis, and maybe we didn't sell it enough because he's clearly back to making an impact for this Winnipeg Jets hockey team. And I think the chemistry with him and Gabe Velarde is something you're seeing on a nightly basis. And it's fun to watch on that second line.
Have to wonder how much he's being helped by having quality line mates. For a majority of the season, it was Scheifele, Connor, Velarde, and that line wasn't really changed. But I think putting Velarde on, whether it was with Taves and now with Perfetti, has given them another line that contribute offensively when for a majority of the season they struggled to score goals. So, nice to see that. Alternatively, I don't think the top line was very good for a while with Iafallo. They put Nyquist there. They went back to it. I'm sure they'll keep, no practice today. The Jets are off. So we'll see what happens tomorrow morning at the morning skate. You will be there. Here's Scott Arniel. For yesterday, post-game on Cole Perfetti.
Real nice play on Gabe's goal, going down, shot off the pad. Power play, he's helped that give it a little spark. Last game, he was good on it. Had some really good looks tonight. Got a great look and finished it. But he's playing with confidence, and that's kind of the Cole. When he's feeling really good about things, he makes plays, and he's playing on the inside. He's going to the hard areas to get that offense. And you know what? I just like this compete. When he does that, good things happen.
Perfetti skating with confidence. He tried to spin a Rama at one point as well, making some nice plays, set up Lowry. Lowry said that what he shanked that one in front of the net. I thought he had a nice pass to Velarde before the tying goal. And tying goal, a guy on the heater of all heaters, Connor Logan Stanley on when needing a goal. You know he's got the big shot, so big that he can shoot it off Rantanen's stick. It can break and find its way into the back of the net. I mean, the Jets haven't had too many third period comebacks this year, but how about Stan getting used when when they need a goal in the crucial moment of the game?
Yeah, usually that's Pionk's role, right? Like they bump Pionk up with Morrissey, with the top line, and they're chasing a game. And Logan Stanley, I mean, when you're hot, you're hot. He's shooting the puck more than he ever has in his career. And this is just the stuff that happens when you're red hot. Is it goes off of a guy's stick, floats over the goalie and in. And the Winnipeg Jets, we've heard it all year from Scott O'Neill and the players. They don't care how they get goals. They don't care how they get secondary scoring. They just want to get it. That was an example of it. I don't know if Logan Stanley still falls into the secondary scoring camp. I think he's tied for 5th on the team in goals right now with 9. But I mean, that is exactly what you have to do in that scenario: cause chaos, get pucks to the net. That's why the cliche kind of has some steam behind it of just get pucks to the net and good things happen, because sometimes hockey is weird and it can go off a guy's stick and float over Jake Ottinger and go in and get the Jets a point, which again, this brings us back to the overtime discussion where last year they would have been so great at that and maybe end up winning that game after tying it late, but they don't get it as Thomas Harley scores the OT winner. But again, good for Logan Stanley, 9th goal of the season. A bit of a lucky one, but he wouldn't tell you that it's luck. And again, if we're 6 games away from the trade deadline for the Winnipeg Jets, 1 before the break, 5 after the break, the Logan Stanley discussion likely isn't going anywhere over this next month. So another goal for maybe opposing GMs to take a look at when they fire up Logan Stanley's DB page isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, he's got such a hard shot. He can break a stick and it can go in. I don't know how many times that's happened before, but here's Scott O'Neill on putting Logan Stanley on when they needed a goal.
A little had to do with kind of how Dallas covers it. They really cover low, and we knew it was going to take a shot from the top with some traffic. So he did a good job jumping down, and obviously it was a fortunate bounce. I believe it hit his stick and then kind of changed direction. So he's earned the opportunity to be out there.
There's Scott O'Neill post-game. Shout out to Ken Wiebe and the Winnipeg Free Press for sending him. We'll be joined by Ken Wiebe later on this week, Thursday, to wrap up the Jets' pre-Olympic break schedule. Connor, you mentioned the Olympics, and we'll have plenty of time, I think, to discuss Logan Stanley's trade value for the next 3 weeks. But one thing that's coming up, Team Canada or Team USA and injuries, we did get the news right before we were on. Canada made a change. Anthony Cirelli injured in the Sunday game, Stadium Series. Braden Point, he's been not playing the last couple weeks, and Chris Johnson and Darren Dreger did announce today Anthony Cirelli out for the Olympics, Sam Bennett in. Your thoughts on that roster switch for Team Canada?
Yeah, Remis, I think to me, if you told me any player like being an injury replacement for any player on the entire roster, I think this one would be the least shocking, just because Sam Bennett was on the Four Nations team. We talked about him as a potential snub when the roster was announced. Obviously won the Conn Smythe last year, has won back-to-back cups, and is going to play the same role as Anthony Cirelli. So if Anthony Cirelli or Sam Bennett were going to be on the team and one wasn't, and either of them were going to get hurt, I just felt like this was always going to be a natural swap. It sucks for Anthony Cirelli. I mean, you work your whole life to get on that stage and play for Canada at the Olympics. He was on the Four Nations team, which, can't take that away from him. He was a big part of that team as well, big penalty killer. And this absolutely stings for him. But looking at Sam Bennett, this was the least shocking thing for me. I know some of the online outrage is about Bedard, and obviously here in Winnipeg, Scheifele and Zach Hyman in Edmonton and all of those things. But I think a Braden Point absence, I said this a few days ago, would be a much bigger chance of Scheifele being on the team than an Anthony Cirelli absence. Sam Bennett was always going to be kind of the replacement for me. Very similar players. Sam Bennett, arguably, maybe even playing better right now. 42 points in 55 games for him. Cirelli, 35 points in 49 games. Like I said, Bennett just won the Conn Smythe. What is that, 8 months ago when Florida won the Stanley Cup. So Yeah, not shocking to me, Remis. Sucks for Anthony Cirelli. Absolutely gutted for him. That is a massive blow. But Sam Bennett, again, on the Four Nations team, scored in the final, clutch player, Conn Smythe winner, physical, can kill penalties, all of these things that Team Canada is just bringing in to replace Anthony Cirelli. Did it shock you at all? Or am I alone?
No, we talked about it on the show yesterday that if he can't go, it'll likely be Sam Bennett. Yeah. And as you just mentioned, Conn Smythe winner, scored in the Four Nations final. He was on the roster last year. They pretty much picked all the same guys. He deserved a spot on the team. It was almost strange that he was the one guy left off based on his playoff performance, which seems something that is so highly regarded. So no surprise for me. Maybe a surprise was that we had heard he had left the last game and was banged up, but being reported by Chris Johnson that he's fine. Elliot Friedman saying he's fine as well. So apparently no concern. I think there should be some concern for Braden Point. He's not going to play their last two games. Might not even play until, potentially game one of the Olympics. Seems strange to me they would bring in a player coming back from injury, as we've seen a couple Jets this year come back from injury and still not be 100%. Why risk it at this point? Braden Point, a good player, not really having a great season. I think they were kind of holding out hope that he can play. It's tough to tell a guy no, but I don't know. If you're not playing in these games, and I know they have another week of recovery before the first game, seems like they should throw in the towel, and there's a lot of really good players playing well you could bring in.
Totally. And again, for people that want Mark Scheifele on this team, I think a Braden Point absence gives him a much higher chance of being one of the injury replacements than an Anthony Cirelli one did. Although I went 1-for-1 in predicting Bennett for Cirelli, even though that was an obvious one, so I won't pat myself on the back too hard. If Point misses Remis, I think it'll be Zach Hyman. I got to say, I think they're going to lean on the instant chemistry that he'd have with a guy like Connor McDavid. Hyman has 22 goals in 37 games this year. His month of January, he was the leading Canadian in goals in terms of players that weren't on the Olympic team. So I think it could be Zach Hyman. Again, Mark Scheifele probably has a great chance too if Point misses. Connor Bedard is in there. Wyatt Johnston, who we saw last night, for the Dallas Stars, he's in that discussion as well. But I think if there was a cool bet lineup on most likely player to be replacing Braden Point, if Braden Point misses time, I think Zach Hyman would be the favorite right now, just because I think Canada will lean on that instant chemistry with McDavid, as they viewed Point as a guy that was probably going to play with McDavid, use that speed on the wing, all of those things. Maybe they bring Zach Hyman, but that'll be another one to monitor for sure. And there are still 2 days of games here. So hopefully everyone just gets wrapped in bubble wrap for the next 2 nights, and Canada can go into the tournament, maybe with Braden Point healthy, maybe not. But obviously Sam Bennett stepping in for Cirelli, and we'll monitor that throughout the tournament. With the Olympics, I mean, the men's hockey doesn't start till the 11th, at least for Canada. But a lot of the Olympic events getting going tomorrow, Thursday, Remis opening ceremony Friday. Starting to get super excited about the Olympics over here.
Yeah, I'd like to see Mark Scheifele get named. And it seemed like last Olympics they had trouble finding someone to play with Connor McDavid. The Four Nations, trouble finding someone. Zach Hyman seems like would be a natural fit there. We'll have to see if they decide. It could be all for nothing. They could just send Braden Point. So we will stay tuned to Olympic changes.
And I'll just say this, Zach Hyman, the 22 goals in 37 games, because he started the year late with a wrist injury, that's a 49 goal pace over an 82 game season. Like, Zach Hyman has scored 50 before. He's at that pace again. This is Team Canada we're talking about. Like, there are a lot of good hockey players, right? So Mark Scheifele is also at 100-point pace or right around it too. So there's a lot of great options for that replacement. I just wouldn't be shocked if it's Zach Hyman over Mark Scheifele as well if Braden Point misses time. But both have a great argument, of course. It's Team Canada.
This season, Mark Scheifele 4th among Canadian skaters in points. Connor 67 in 55 games behind McDavid, McKinnon, and Celebrini. It's funny. Evan Bouchard is 6th in points among Canadian skaters with 60. Not on the team, and Wyatt Johnston 7th, and you never really hear his name mentioned as a snub either. And Connor Bedard down there, he's just coming back from injury. So we're on the Olympic beat Can't wait for things to get going. There's mixed doubles curling starting tomorrow, but the opening ceremonies will be Friday. I think we'll be during this show, so we'll have some live reaction
Nice.
as I have it on. But we're gonna get into more NHL discussion. A lot of news to talk about. Trade rumors. GM Barry Trotz stepping down, and of course more Olympics and the playoff races. Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period will be joining me shortly, but first, here's Huss.
During these cold winter days and you're looking for things to do, might I suggest you head down and see our friends at Uptown Alley at 1301 St. Matthews Avenue. While it's cold outside, things are heating up on the lanes at Uptown Alleys with tons of 5-pin lanes, 10-pin lanes, and an incredible state-of-the-art arcade, and so much more for both group parties, corporate events, or just getting together with your gang or the family to kill some time when it's a little bit tough to be outside. Uptown Alley has incredible food and beverage options as well, so it's a great place to spend an evening, spend a day, grab something to eat, and have a heck of a lot of fun. It is the perfect place for birthday parties for kids, teens, or adults, and their event staff will take care of your group or corporate event and make it so easy. All you do is decide what activities you want, what you're going to be eating, any add-ons, and their event staff will take care of everything else. You can find out more information on all of it at uptownalley.ca. Give them a call at 488-0000. And don't forget, 7 days a week, their bowl and play special after 9 p.m., $20.49 for 90 minutes of 5-pin bowling and a $10 arcade card. Well, it's cold outside. Heat things up on the lanes at Uptown Alley. Our friends at Rowley's Transfer are ready to help you make that move in 2026. If you will be moving, there's a lot of stress that goes on with it. Well, Rowley's, family-owned and operated for over 60 years, and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, has been lessening the stress for their clients now into their 7th decade. Check out their website at rowleys.com. You can click on Request an Estimate, put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. Then let them know when and where you're planning on moving and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rowley's will turn around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they've been famous for over 60 years. For all your moving needs, lean on Rowley's Transfer, the most trusted name in the game. Find out more today online at rowleys.com. Do have to shout out our friends at St. Vital Dental Center. Of course, they've been serving generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans in St. Vital for years. And now our pal Dr. Terry and his great staff have a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with state-of-the-art equipment and convenient free parking right behind the building. They do it all for clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. Whatever your dental needs, they're there for you. And if it's been a little while since you've been to the dentist, better you do it proactively as opposed to when it just hurts too much and you got to get in there. For all your dental needs, head on over to St. Vital Dental Center. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. Find out more. Book online today for an appointment at stviteldental.ca. And hey, football season feels like it's not just around the corner, but the snow's going to melt. We'll be back at Princess Auto Stadium, cheersing each other with Canadian Club, the official Canadian whiskey and official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But while you might be staying at home a little bit more these days, pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and get Canada's iconic Canadian whiskey, the good stuff, since 1848 at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And when you're at your local beer store, make sure to keep your eyes out for remaining stock of the amazing limited edition Canadian Club Cranberry Ginger Ale, which was such a big hit over the holiday season. Available in 4-packs and 473 milliliter singles at Liquor Mart locations and your local beer stores as well.
Pleased to be joined by Dennis Bernstein from the Fourth Period. He's in Florida, just took in the Stadium Series, got another game tonight. Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Hey, Remo, it's great to be with you. All the people from Canada that came down in Boston, that came down to Tampa, thought they were going to get a break with the weather. It's below zero Celsius here at night now. But we saw a great Stadium Series game. We stayed on Sabres Lightning tonight, which if I told you in October that was a big game, you'd say that was crazy, and I probably am anyway. But that's a big game tonight, and then we're back to LA tomorrow for Seattle Kings, and Kenny Holland will speak to the media before the game, and then they go to Vegas Thursday, and then the Olympic break. So great to be with you on WST.
Yeah, and Dennis, you've been to a lot of these outdoor games. It seemed like they really outdid themselves on Sunday, made it a spectacle. They did the whole pirate theme. Just raised the profile for outdoor games going forward. And the game also was excellent, close, overtime or shootout, and a goalie fight as well. I mean, it was pretty incredible on the first Sunday of the year without NFL football.
Yeah, I've been to, I think, 15 outdoor games now, and everyone's so different. Even the two in Florida were very, very different. The feel of the Winter Classic is much different. And what they did in Tampa, that's Gasparilla, which is basically Tampa's version of the Mardi Gras. All right, and we were here 6 years ago for All-Star, and I had no idea what it was. I walked outside from the hotel, and there were pirate people. What's going on? Is this part of the All-Star game, All-Star weekend? But they've embraced the Cuban culture. They embraced Gasparilla. So you're right. All the entertainment, all the visual stuff was really, there's a lot of thought put into this one. Some maybe other ones weren't, but with respect to the entertainment part and the pregame intros, it was really, really well done. And you're right, Remo. Great game, goalie fight, shootout. Couldn't ask for better. And for people that don't like this or think it's campy, look, here's the deal. If you live in Seattle and you didn't care about this game, I understand, I get it. But 45 outdoor games total, they average 50,000 in attendance. These are not going away. They'll sell out Utah next year for the Winter Classic, and who knows how many they'll have in Jerry World, because remember, at the Cotton Bowl for Winter Classic, they had 85,000 people. And so with respect to Vegas and Dallas, these games are not going away. If you go to the game, you have a good time, because here's the thing. It's not a game. It's a spectacle. It's history. It's an event. And that's why these games still resonate with the fan base.
Yeah, and we're having the Heritage Classic here in October. We did it 10 years ago. Looking forward to having it back. A lot of excitement for that one. And they're having, making it a big celebratory weekend of Winnipeg hockey, bringing some alumni as well.
Yep.
So I can't wait for that. And yeah, seeing what they did in Tampa makes me wonder, okay, what's it going to look like here in Winnipeg? We, leading into the Olympic break, have had a lot of news around the league.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Barry Trotz stepped down in Nashville. What do you think led to that, and what's next for the Predators?
Well, I think it's a new owner spreading his wings, right? Haslam's coming in, and he wants to run the show his way. And the results haven't been there. Barry's last 2 summers ago, when he brought in Stamkos, when he brought in Marshall, so it hasn't worked. So I think they just want to go to a different direction. But I think, and it's been echoed before, I think the respect that Barry Trotz has in that market. He's kind of like the second mayor of this of Nashville. They weren't just going to bum rush him out of there, so they're going to take their time. I'm sure it's a great city to live in. It's a franchise that's really well established, so it's going to be a really good job. But the weird thing about this team has been in existence for 30 years. They've had 2 general managers. You don't see that anywhere else, right? So they'll take their time. Now the question is, Remo, they say that Trotz, who really hasn't succeeded as general manager, is going to make the decisions here until they get a new GM. Probably not going to get one by the trade deadline. You would hope that one's in place by the draft. But now, how much input will Barry Trotz have when the team really isn't a legit Stanley Cup contender and has pieces to deal? I assume he's going to be able to still make moves here when we get to either by 3 o'clock on Wednesday, which I don't think there'll be a lot of trades, because you don't want to trade for a guy and then pay for him for a month, and then he's not playing. So, and what happens in the offseason. So it's going to be interesting. So I think we're shocking to most people around the national organization. We talked to Robbie Stanley, who writes for NHL.com, was on the morning show on SiriusXM. And there's a lot of surprise in the market of the timing of it and the fact that it actually happened with Barry Trotz.
Yeah, Barry Trotz, legendary figure in Nashville. And of course here, he's from Manitoba as well. You mentioned the trade freeze coming up. You have the trade watch list out at the 4th period. Artemi Panarin at the top. What does the future hold for him, and who are the teams interested in Artemi Panarin?
Yeah, I think some of them, Remo, like some of the rumors, like Detroit's probably out. I don't, even though Washington, because there's an obvious connection to Ovi, I don't think they're out. So I think Carolina, right? I think I'm talking about an extension. Carolina, LA, maybe San Jose. And here's the thing. he wants the money, but he wants to win. So if he's going to sign an extension anywhere, he has to believe that that team he signs with for 3 or 4 years, or how many years it's going to be, is a Stanley Cup contender. Now, there is a scenario where he goes to another team, let's say like, I don't know, Florida. Like, what's going on with Brad Marchand? He's hurt now. Would there be cap space to get that done? And I don't know if they would trade for it, but that would be typical Florida. And even a team like Edmonton on a rental, right? And look, the Rangers will retain some money. So do they have the space? I'm not sure. So there are teams fishing around, but I think that it's two things. It's A, does the team have interest? Right? B, do you have a competitive package to send back, which is probably first-round pick, roster player, and a decent prospect, right? And then is there interest with respect to the player signing an extension with that team? So, and again, I don't think anything's going to happen here before Wednesday because won't be able to play for any of the new acquired teams. But you got to think there are conversations. He's still sitting out games. He's got to play, so he can't sit out many more games. Let's say post Olympics. I think you probably see once they activate and once they can announce trades. I think at that point in time you'll probably see Artemi Panarin trades you're talking about later this month as opposed to by next Wednesday.
Yeah, some of us, like myself, have Panarin in a fantasy league. Not happy about him getting holed out for so many games. If it's one game,
how dare they, Remo? How dare they?
How don't they know? But
they don't know.
But I'm looking at your list there at fourth period.
Yeah,
surprised to see Alex Tuch number 2. I think that's really interesting. UFA after the season, you're in Tampa to see the Sabres. They're in a playoff spot for the first time in ages. And, he's Buffalo, from Buffalo as well. What's going to happen with Alex Tuch here?
Remo, you're going to undo all the goodwill that you build up this season with your fan base. I mean, the building's full now on a lot of nights, right? Here's a guy from he's from Syracuse. He's from Western New York. When he trained, he said, I want to be here. I built a house. I want to, like, you're sending the wrong, I don't care. And here's the situation. It doesn't matter what the price is. If you have to overpay to keep this player, it's the one guy you need to pay. Everybody else is paid. Everybody else got their contracts. This is the one player because it sends the wrong signal to the fan base. If you don't, then you're not a serious team. Then you have a good. And Remo, this is a legit team. Like, you watch them, they finally getting some saves. Alex Lyon out of nowhere comes in, wins 11 in a row. Like, this is a legitimate team. It's a big, dangerous team. Tate Thompson's a great player. Darlene's been great, even with the personal problems off the ice with his fiance and his wife. It's been a really nice run. You can't let this guy leave. You just can't. And Keck's done a lot of right moves. He's got to do this one, though. And I don't want to announce it. I don't think they're close. Brian Bartlett's his agent. But a situation where you can undo all this good things that you did and it's been a long time, Remo. It's been 15 years. I talked to a couple of Sabres fans at the bar last night here in Tampa, and they still don't disbelieve the team's so good. To be honest with you, they can't believe it. So it's been a great run. But it's better. This team is better than a great run. It's becoming a very, very, very good team. And you got to keep Alex Tuch in Buffalo if you're a Kekalina and the Sabres.
Yeah, they had the Josh Doan contract in January extension there. Be tough to say no to a guy, as you mentioned, from the area, said he wants to be part of it. They're finally good. But you mentioned no discussions. The Olympic break coming up here, we're starting to get news about injuries and roster replacements. Just before we had this conversation, Team Canada announcers reported Chris Johnson, Darren Dreger saying Anthony Cirelli out. I mean, really tough to be injured at the end. And Sam Bennett coming in seemed like a pretty logical replacement, though, for Canada.
Yeah, some people said Sam should have been on the team for his ability to make big hits and big plays. I mean, it's a different type of stuff. Maybe, it's a different type of style in the Olympics. The stuff that went down in the Four Nations isn't going to go down in Milan. So maybe that's a little bit of a bias against Sam Bennett, but he was a logical choice because he did play well in the Four Nations. He was a key contributor in the Stanley Cup runs for Florida. So a big player in a big spot. That's what you're getting, Sam Bennett. So no surprise. Unfortunate for Cirelli and unfortunate for Tampa Bay because they're on an incredible run. But I get the reason why Sam Bennett was a replacement for Cirelli. Different type of player, but still effective in the Olympics.
Yeah, and Braden Point still injured, not going to play the final couple games here before the break, and we're kind of waiting to hear if there was a replacement there. Team USA, they might have some replacement as well. Jack Hughes not playing tonight. I mean, how much pressure on Team USA to come home with a gold medal, and who would be some candidates to replace Jack Hughes, or do you think he'll be able to go?
Yeah, well, I don't think Jack's ever been 100%. Jack had the hand injury, and unfortunately, it's in Chicago. This is a second injury. He's so banged up. He has no injury luck. Now, the guy who's the most pressure is on Billy Guerin, right? Because there's some selections that he made, and you could see why he made them. He prefers size over skill. Like that's why. Well, not right. That's why Caulfield isn't on the team. That's why Lane Hudson isn't on the team, right? But I would assume that you'd go with Jason Robertson. The guy's a 30-goal scorer. I probably should have been on the team over JT Miller. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Billy Guerin to get this done and win the gold medal because there'll be so many second guesses about how he built the team. And I get it. It's not a fancy team you built. You're trying to build a team that won. And let's be real, if not for Jordan Bennington, that team would have won 4 nations. So they are that close. They are that competitive. But the question is, will size and strength overcome the skill advantage that the Canadians will have over the U.S. team? So I don't think there's pressure on the team per se. I think there's more pressure on Billy Guerin because of the way he built the teams, Remo.
In goal, we thought Hrabchak would have been a lock at the end of last season. He hasn't had his best year to follow up. Do you think he gets the nod for game 1 for USA? I mean, we just saw Swayman give up a bunch on Sunday. Ottinger's, he's been pretty solid this year, but how does it shaping up for USA in goal?
I think the guy who had the best season so far, despite the stadium series, has been Swayman. I don't know. Do you go back to Connor, or what's the rap on Connor? Big game, make a save. Bennington was better than you, so I think it's up in the air. To be honest with you, it might be a situation that might be decided in Milan. I really like Dallas, but I'm not. I think the obstacle for him winning the Stanley Cup in the postseason has been Jake Ottinger. So I think it comes down to between Helly and Swayman. It'll be those two. And I got to think because Winnipeg hasn't played great in front of him, maybe he gets earn some points saying, okay, better defense, better forwards in front of him. He should respond. It hasn't been a great season for him. We'll be transparent about it. For Hrabchak, I think it comes down to those two guys. So the decision might be made in Milan at this point.
Yeah, that Hrabchak was great in the 4 nations. Ended up getting beat on a shot by McDavid, and Bennington was the better goalie, making some big saves. You mentioned, looking at the NHL standings, Dennis, this is such an interesting year where you have a lot of teams that are, usually playoff teams out. You have new teams coming in, like Anaheim in the playoffs. And we mentioned Buffalo as well. Boston was there last year. Which team do you have your eye on as, a buyer or a seller as we get closer to the trade deadline? Which team is the most intriguing right now?
I think the most intriguing would be Carolina, right? Because Tampa Bay's been on a great run, but are they going to continue to be? They get so banged up, Remo. So I think I look at Carolina. I got to think that Tulsi's not afraid to take a big swing. Remember, he did it with Rantanen, didn't work out. He went and got Ehlers, but they need something in the middle. I think Nats Kadri is the 2 seed behind Aho. Is not mandatory, but it's the only way they're going to get a path to victory to get to a cup final, which has eluded them. It's a really good team. It's still a great home team, still very well coached. It's smart. It's a quick team. They just need more in the middle. You can't do it with Stankoven or Kotkaniemi in the middle as the 2 seed. It's impossible. You can't get through the East. So I think that's one team I look at. And then, what are the two? What does Colorado and Dallas do? I think Dallas could use a little bit of a boost. They've won 5 straight, but they need some certain. And what's going on with Colorado, Remo? I mean, you watch them play. They're not. Maybe they're bored, but that would be a situation where maybe a guy like Evander Kane to shake things up. Now they don't have a ton of cap space. Dallas has more cap space than Colorado does, and Minnesota. And look, we talked to Joe O'Donnell, who's the play-by-play voice for the Wild. I said, why is Brock Faber scoring all these goals? He didn't hesitate. 2 words: Quinn Hughes. Like, this is a different team with Quinn Hughes. It is. But here's the problem, like other teams, like Carolina, after Eriksson Ek, you've got Ron Hartman as your 2C. Sorry, you're not going to get through to the Cup final with that center alignment. So can they go find a center, Minnesota? These are the 3 best teams in the West without question. But they do have their flaws. I think Colorado's more like, okay, are they going to be interested? But Dallas has some flaws because they're in the middle 6. Maybe could use a little boost. Maybe that also could be a place for Evander Kane. So I look at, but in the one team in the East that I think has a legit shot that should go in, because Pittsburgh is a miracle, but I don't think they're going to go all in. Detroit might make some tweaks. The one team that really needs to get to a Cup final is Carolina. because everybody else has been there. Florida's been there. Tampa's been there. Detroit's probably a season away. Montreal's doing a good job. That's the one team that needs to make that move. It has to be a center. If it's Kadri or maybe you bring home Vinny Trocheck, that would be the one team that's going to, I think, make a significant move because it's trying to admit to a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, Carolina certainly has the path to get there in the East. They've been close, but not able to get over the hump. You mentioned Quinn Hughes. I saw this yesterday. He's tied Ryan Suter for the most 3 or more assist games in Wild history by a defenseman. Suter played 656 games for the Wild. Quinn Hughes, only 25.
He's played 25 games, Remo. It's incredible what he's done to that team. They got to keep him in Minnesota. I mean, it looks like a fit there, but he's, as much as I love Mikhail Makar, probably vote him one as the Norris. This kid, it's 101A now. He's just so incredible. I'm glad he's playing like further east, so you don't have to stay up till 10:30 at night Eastern time to watch this kid play. But he is just an incredible impact elite defenseman in this league.
Yeah, them in overtime with Kaprizov and Boldy did it again last night. Getting a lot of points in overtime, and it's funny. Look at the Pacific Division where you're in the area covering the Kings and the Ducks. It's amazing that Vegas is first in the Pacific. 14 overtime losses, only 25 wins. All the teams below them with more wins. Yeah. What do you make of how the Pacific Division will shake out? And, can the Ducks get into the playoffs in, what's been a really great year for them, but they've had some ups and downs?
I've used the terminology a lot the last couple of weeks. It's a dog's breakfast. It's a mess. The Kings have had a subpar season, and I'm being calm by saying subpar, right? I think they're 28th in scoring. They're 4 points out of first with a game in hand with 28 games left. Like, there's no way. There's just no way. Like, these teams can be there. It's the overtime. The Kings have played 23 overtime games in 55 games. That's incredible. It's nuts. It's incredible. Because guess what? All these teams are about the same. They're all flawed. Like, you thought San Jose had a shot. Now they've lost a couple in a row. They didn't look good in Calgary last night. I've said this a million times, Remo. We don't need a play-in tournament. We got it right now. All the games now is the play-in tournament. I think you could have 2 playing games at game 82 for the wild card spots. That's how close it's going to be because no team separates. They go on 2 or 3 game winning streaks and then they lose 4 out of 5. And Edmonton, Edmonton, they waived the goalie. Jarry gets beat so much by short side. Yeah, they saved games. Bouchard's been great back there. Who knows? I just think the situation with the Pacific Division is you're lining up to lose to the Central because there's a definite delineation between what's going on with the top 3 teams there and whoever the top 3 teams are in the Pacific because, Remo, it changes every day. It's like polar opposites. Like, the top 3 teams in Central. It could be Anaheim, San Jose, and Vegas when we get to game 82. It's going to be crazy and not in a good way because there's not much separating these teams.
Yeah, you have to wonder which of these teams are actually good. It's amazing. Utah's got the best goal differential. They're in a wild card spot, plus 23. So Dennis will be tuned in to the 4th period for your trade list, all the rumors heading into the break, heading into the deadline. Thank you so much for taking time from Florida to join me today, and enjoy the game tonight and enjoy the Olympics as well. Should be a great tournament.
Oh, it's always great being on Winnipeg Sports Talk with you, Remo. Have a great day.
Don't forget, gang, right now is a great time to jump online or pop by Red River Co-op or London Drugs and grab your tickets for this St. Boniface Hospital Mega Million Choices Lottery. Of course, you can get them in person or order online at stbmegamillionchoices.ca, and you'll be in for everything. First deadline for the winter bonus is January 29th. The second deadline for the ultimate bonus is February the 20th. And of course, in addition to all the incredible early bird prizes with more than $500,000 in prize draws and winners, including the biggest ever bonus and the all-new World Cup experience prize package worth over $10,000 in Vancouver, you'll be in for one of the 6 grand prize options. 5 $1.5 million dream home packages in Winnipeg and Vancouver Island, or $1.25 million cash tax-free. How does that sound? It's all in support of the incredible work of the St. Boniface Hospital, both equipment and research, and makes such a big difference in our community. So Pop by, get your tickets right now. Count yourself in. The earlier, the better to be in for all the early draws and the biggest ever bonus. And maybe you can be Manitoba's next millionaire while supporting the St. Boniface Hospital. Again, online, get your tickets, stbmegamillionchoices.ca. And you can also order toll-free at 1-855-256-7203. Do want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto is synonymous with Winnipeg, headquartered in the Peg, founded right here, and now serving Canadians coast to coast. And with 3 Manitoba locations, 2 in the city and 1 out in Brandon, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see him on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or out in Brandon. And as always, you can shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. I know it's cold. I know we're in the middle of winter, but I do know some folks that are loving every minute of it. And that, of course, is our pals over at Chud's Power Sports in Gimli, Manitoba's power sports superstore for over 80 years, family owned with the best staff in the business that have been there with decades. Now, they have it all at Chud's Power Sports. Of course, snowmobiles, golf courts, pontoons, farming equipment. But right now, it's all about the sleds and the trails. Snow day deals on right now from Polaris, up to $3,000 off select snowmobiles and up to $4,000 off Polaris select off-road vehicles as well, including financing as low as 0% APR. Check out their great new website at chudspowersports.com, which will tell you all about everything that they've got going on, from snowmobiles to timber sled, snow bikes, or maybe you're already starting to think about spring and summer with RVs, or heck, we got ice fishing season coming up too with ice shacks. They have it all at Chud's Power Sports. And as I mentioned, with the best staff that'll help you get exactly what you need at amazing deals as well. While you're on the website, top right corner, you'll see the link for e-commerce store. That will take you to truenorthparts.ca, their sister site, with the best in parts for whatever you need. And of course, amazing deals on clearance gear and accessories. And it's all waiting for you up in Gimli at the corner of Highway 8 and 231. Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba's leader for 80 years. See him in Gimli or shop online today at chudspowersports.com. And with the deep freeze here, it is maybe overdue for you to call up Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery to help you out, to make sure your car is getting from point A to point B. There's nobody that does it better than Manitoba Battery when it comes to customer service and price on batteries for literally everything. Now, we'll wait for the toys for the summer, because right now it's about making it through this Manitoba winter. And of course, if you do need a battery or you're wondering whether it's going to make it through, you can pop by either of the locations on Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive for a free battery testing. And if you need a new one, you'll get one for the best price in town, shopping local and beating the pants off the big box stores with price and customer service as well. Manitoba Battery will also deliver batteries anywhere inside the perimeter. If you need it, pop by and see them in store today, or shop online and get your boost from Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery online at manitobabattery.com.
There's us. He'll be back tomorrow. I can't wait to talk with him, hear about his trip to Costa Rica. And if you want to get more Hustler, check out CFL 110 on our channel or on the podcast feed. Bring in Connor Hrabchak. One thing we didn't mention, Connor, I keep scrolling X and I'm checking out the highlights. I keep seeing everyone saying, Mikko Rantanen, what an incredible highlight reel move, dangling Luke Schenn and Connor Hrabchak on his way to what was a very big goal for Dallas. Was that a highlight reel goal, or was that a player mismatch there with, Mikko Rantanen going up against Luke Schenn?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you can make the argument for both sides. I'll lean more maybe towards highlight reel goal. Mikko Rantanen is a very good hockey player. He does that sometimes. Luke Schenn We know what he is at this stage of his career, meant to be a defensive defenseman, but at this stage of his career isn't a guy that's going to be shutting down the rush very often. And that's the advantage that teams have when they're on home ice and they have last change. They can get their best players out there against the other team's bottom pair defense. And Mikko Rantanen just stepped right around Luke Schenn. It was a very nice move and made a very nice move around Connor Hrabchak as well, as Hrabchak was kind of expecting maybe a shot right away. Rantanen goes to the backhand there and beats Hrabchak. So I don't know. I'll maybe argue a little bit of both on that, Remis, and maybe fence that take. Where are you at on that one?
Bringing out the goal visualizer.
Yes.
I think it was a bit of both. I don't know if the degree of difficulty was there that you see with some other ones, but yeah, you got put on a poster, Schenn, or what's the 2026 term of that? I don't know if people still have posters, although I still have a lot of mine from when I was growing up, but it was not great. But what did look great were the Dallas Stars jerseys. Not quite the 90s Brett Hull, Mike Modano edition, but I guess they try to update it for 2026. Personally, I think I'm not a huge fan of the Dallas jerseys. I think the original ones from late 90s were better, but I thought they looked pretty good yesterday in their updated version here as they try to bring you in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think right when they announced that, it looked great, those jerseys. And to see them on the ice last night, I know they've played in other games, of course, but to see them on the ice last night, very, very well done with the jerseys. And I know you have some issues with Fanatics, Remis, and I think we all do when talking about some of the things that they do and their jersey manufacturing, but they're kind of leaning into some of these retro looks for a lot of teams around the league. And it's going to be interesting to see here in Winnipeg with a Heritage Classic coming up in October. What is that jersey going to look like? The 2019 and 2016 Heritage jerseys for the Winnipeg Jets, widely regarded, or the majority of fans regard those jerseys as the nicest for the Jets since they've returned, with kind of the red being worked into it and all of that stuff. So I'm always here for a great retro jersey. That one looks amazing on the ice. It's got more color and it's not quite the dark, like neon firefighter type jerseys that their other alternates are for Dallas. So I'm a big fan of those jerseys. Great to see them last night. And every time I see new jerseys, just like the Stadium Series with Boston and Tampa Bay on the weekend, excited to see what they cook up for the Jets in October.
I actually didn't mind the Stadium Series jerseys. Maybe at the time when they came out, I wasn't a fan that they looked all right. I like the Boston, that shade of yellow doesn't get used enough. It looked good. I'm here for all jersey talk as we do await the Winnipeg Jets Heritage jerseys. I know a lot of people want to buy the white versions right now. I do wonder if they just go with, like, how do you beat that jersey? How would you beat it? It wouldn't be as good, and I know people want to buy them, but they're not available. It would be a good way to bring them back, add a new patch, and you can have this year's edition. But let's continue the Winnipeg Jets discussion. New dad, Murat Atesh, joining us, is smiling there. I'll bring him in. Murat, how's it going over there? How are things? Nice to talk to you again this week. Oh, one sec. I got to hit your microphone to turn on. How about now? No. Oh, I think I got you. There we go. Nope. Let me try this. How about now? You there? I don't have you. Maybe exit and come back. I don't have an answer. That's computers. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And Connor, I see some commentary in the chat. We're talking about Olympics, talking about Team Canada, and I see one chatter in there saying Canada's a lock. They're going to steamroll everyone. They're not going to be in trouble. Canada's certainly favored to win, and they're the favorite to win. They're plus 120 on Cool Bet, but I think that's discounting all the other countries. USA took them to overtime, and it required Jordan Binnington going superhuman for them to win. We could be having a very different conversation if that Four Nations final went another way.
Totally. And I think it's worth noting, too, in that Four Nations final that USA didn't have Quinn Hughes or Charlie McAvoy. McAvoy got hurt in, I think, the second game of the tournament. Hughes missed the tournament altogether. So there was a lot there that, that will be different in the Olympics this time around. And Canada is replacing Travis Konechny and Seth Jarvis with Macklin Celebrini and stuff, too. So I think you can make the argument for both teams being better. It's going to be awesome. It's best on best. I love the confidence. And as soon as I turn off my Jets reporter brain and the Olympics start next week, I'm going to be talking about how Canada is going to steamroll everyone too. Like I'm all in on this, but the USA, absolutely, their defense core is loaded. The best in the tournament, I'd say by far, with Werenski, Hughes, McAvoy. They just added Lacombe, Jake Sanderson, Jacob Slavin. And then they have the goaltending, too. Who starts? We'll probably ask Murat about that coming up in just a moment here. Is it Hellebuck? Do they go to someone else? They've had the goaltending advantage over Canada, or at least seemingly on paper. And then Canada has the top-end talent up front to match. And it's going to make for what is hopefully an awesome gold medal game. It would be a shame if these two teams met in the semis or something like that. But they got to earn their way to the gold medal game. So looking forward to it. And again, as soon as next week starts, I'll probably be right there with you. Canada's going to steamroll everyone. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. And let's go to Murat Atesh of The Athletic. Murat, thanks so much for taking the time to join. I think that we've got you there. How's it going?
I think we're good. And you know what, guys? I think the issue was on my end. There was some laptop setting where the mic was muted, and I apologize. I'm getting rusty here on my pat leave, forgetting how the basic tech works. But I was trying to say things are going well, and thanks for having me. Happy to be here with you guys again.
Yeah, not a lot of sleep in the early days of a new dad, and I'll say you're not the only one. A guy on my hockey team came to our game. He had a child, the beginning of January as well. Left the game, forgot his sticks, went home without his sticks. Just so scatterbrained. Thankfully, someone did turn those in, and I think he's getting them back. But that's just what happens when you're in the early days. You don't know what day it is. But let's go back to the Winnipeg Jets. Last night, OT loss in Dallas. Have we reached a crisis where the Winnipeg Jets can't win in extra time? 8 straight losses right now, Connor. How concerning is this, or is this just a wrong side of variance?
I think that we're looking at some variance. I don't think that we're looking at a real crisis. I still believe in the Connor, Scheifele, Morrissey trio to produce results. Like their 3-on-3 skills are Globetrotter-esque, and I believe in that. I think sometimes the Jets get a little bit cute in the lines that they try to throw out there to win the face-off and establish possession. Lowry's been burnt and other combinations. But over the long run, right, if you're looking for teams that are really big benefactors of variance or getting really killed by variance, you look at OT records, and that's one. I'm not worried about the Winnipeg Jets OT record the same way that I'm worried about so many other pieces of the Winnipeg Jets.
Murat, since the last time we talked to you was coming out of that Detroit game, and you were talking about how you've preached this no cheat mentality with the Winnipeg Jets, and maybe that game got away from it. Scott O'Neill clearly didn't like it after that one. The past couple of games have been a lot better. The Florida game, they push back in the third and come back in that game, and then last night against Dallas, obviously they take them to overtime and score late to get themselves back into that game. Have these last two games been more of that no cheat mentality that you've been preaching so far this season with the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I would say the rug has not been pulled out from under them. They're not at the point where they're shooting themselves in the foot, setting their chances on fire just by virtue of BS crawling into their game. At the same time, at this stage, I am beginning to lose confidence in their ability to do all of the things right all the way through. And some of it isn't necessarily about effort, like to your question. Some of it is, if you run Mikko Rantanen at Luke Schenn enough times, something bad will eventually happen. And that's on the Winnipeg Jets. That's not on effort level by anybody. I also think you're starting to see, when Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele aren't winning their 5-on-5 minutes, and they got kind of pushed around possession-wise last night, you get the power play going. Sure, that's part of what they do so well. But they've gotten to a point of their season where they're not really crushing those 5-on-5 minutes, and you need that for Winnipeg to have a prayer. So I'm not going to say that they've gone and started to cheat the game necessarily, but they do like to extend their offensive zone attacks, and they are getting beaten defensively of late. So no critiques of of egregious nature. Just I'm not seeing enough to say that these guys are doing what it's going to take to go on that playoff qualification heater.
One thing the Jets have been looking for all season, Murat, is secondary scoring. Cole Perfetti, really slow start, but it seems to be coming on as of late. Have they found something here with this Vilardi, Lowry, Perfetti line?
Yeah, and you know what, Cole Perfetti, I think the last time I was on your show, the three of us were talking, right? And I was kind of saying, well, you kind of need another level from Cole Perfetti than what you're getting. And in the last week, he's shown that. He's been getting to the middle of the ice. He's been creating chances. He's been getting his looks. They put him back on the power play. He scores there last night, and that's the job, right? He wasn't producing, and okay, you look at Jonathan Toews, but the goal is that he can play that role and bury, and he did that. So good on him. Good on him to crash the net when Gabriel Vilardi made that exceptional move off the rush 2 games ago, right? For me, I think the broadcast was talking about how Cole Perfetti had earned that goal. He'd done all the right things. And I'm sitting there going yes, true. And Gabriel Vilardi was in a position on the wall just about coming off the rush where he shouldn't have had time and space. There was he was written off, but he makes a little bit of a hesitation move, freezes the defender's rhythm, and now there's space, and now he's moving. And I think that we're seeing some of Vilardi's best hockey of late too, offensively. And then to add Adam Lowry, I've criticized most of his season. I don't think we've seen the best Adam Lowry all year. Hip surgery is a big deal. I think we've underestimated it in public discourse, just how much he went through in that regard. His last few games are starting to look a little bit more like the real Adam Lowry. It may be too little too late for this season, but if you're looking for signs of hope that some of these guys have more than they've given, I think you're starting to see that from that secondary group.
Murat, on the topic of maybe too little, too late for this season, is Perfetti and Vilardi playing well together with Lowry, and maybe those two showing chemistry in a scenario where, usually Vilardi's up with the top line, Perfetti's not playing with Vilardi, are finding these combos that might work together chemistry-wise a big emphasis for you for the Winnipeg Jets in the final 27 or so games? Maybe Cole Perfetti and Kyle Connor can work well together long-term. Things like that, finding out, part of the information gathering as we near the end of the season?
I think that's key. I like that question a lot. I think we forget too, Cole Perfetti scored his first NHL goal on a line with Kyle Connor. Him and PLD were playing together at that time. When Winnipeg had better center depth than it does right now. And there are other looks for Winnipeg. I was also reflecting, was it 2 games ago, there was an extended 4-on-4 stretch in the third or something to that degree. My memory is not what it should be, guys. But we've seen some 4-on-4 hockey of late. And I was thinking to myself, outside of Connor Scheifele, who do you really trust to run somebody's show? If you're looking for pairs. And I was thinking, Perfetti, Vilardi, you like a lot of that, but that's not a guarantee to kind of go work someone over, right? And I think great teams in the NHL have at least 2 pairs, and I think that helps you build at least 2 top 6 lines that you can trust. So I think Winnipeg does need that information in a big way. I think it's a great sign they're getting that information about that middle 6 group. Cool. And I also think it continues to be a stain on the coaching decisions of this season that we're looking at a $12 million player and an $8.5 million player, the 2 drivers of the entire team who are exceptional players, and you still don't know what they're capable of doing driving different lines. And if you're looking for ways this team can be better someday, one thing you got to do is figure out if these $20+ million worth of elite athlete can create 2 top 6 lines that absolutely go. And I'm still a little bit shocked that they don't know the answer to that this year.
We mentioning that top line with Scheifele and Connor, we did see Gus Nyquist start the game. Has this free agent signing gone, just about as poorly as you could have ever imagined? And would a player like Gus Nyquist have any trade value here as we approach the deadline?
Yeah, he's been moved at past deadlines, and during those seasons, he's had more accomplishments to his name. I think there may be depth picks available for Gus Nyquist, depending on what the Jets are willing to accept. It's a bad look that a $3.25 million player, I think that's the salary, pardon my memory, has 0 goals to this stage of the season. That's a bad look. And when that signing was made, I thought, okay, like there's a trend in Winnipeg Jets summer signings, age, right? There are a lot of older players signed. They brought Shen back despite some possibilities of moving him. And then you add Taves, you add Nyquist, and it's like, okay, maybe other teams are overbetting aging curves. And maybe there are some veterans that, okay, they're not flying off the shelves day one of free agency, but like Winnipeg can get better value. And I put that question to Chev, and he said, no, the age was more of a coincidence. And you hoped that they had identified something because his skill is there. You watch Gus Nyquist play, I believe he sees high-level offensive plays. I believe in his vision. I believe that he's very well aware of how defenders are covering him. You see him, he has a good sense of when to hold on to pucks, when to move them, all that sort of stuff. But he's not influencing the play. He's a passenger on that line. He's not like the body of his work this season is enough to say, yeah, the Jets swung and they missed, and it's going to look extra bad that he's in Ehlers' theoretical spot. But that was never a comparison. It's just been a swing and a miss, and Winnipeg has a couple of those on their roster right now, which is part of the problem.
Murat, we'll get to the Olympics in just a moment, and I want to ask your thoughts for the Bennett for Cirelli replacement today for Team Canada. But just before we move on, Logan Stanley scores again last night. There's only 6 games between now and the trade deadline. It's maybe a bit of an optical illusion because there is a roster freeze coming tomorrow. This won't be your final prediction. There's still time, but do you think this ends in a trade or a contract maybe being signed over the Olympic break between the two sides?
So even though, like as Darren Dreger would have reported like a week ago, I think there's been no formal discussions of contract. Right. I've always assumed that Winnipeg wants this player back. I see a spot on that third pair that he can play if they are just realistic about what his ceiling is. I think that based on his history with Winnipeg, there's a real temptation to think, oh, he's finally arrived, all of this investment, okay, boom. But this is not a player, like when a player arrives this late, their peak is usually shorter, right? Like if they arrive 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, those are the Crosbys of the world that are still great at 38, the Djokovic's of the world making the Aussie Open final. Like when they flirt with top 4 results on shooting percentage heaters like Logan Stanley is now, that's not a long-term bet on solid top 4 results. It's a good team player who can play third pair. So I think Winnipeg would want to sign him. I think it would be about the price. And if Chris Johnston's report of like a $25 million, like we're looking at $5 million AAV, it's just, that seems like too much to pay for the roster spot. And I would think he gets moved if that's the only ask. End of rant. I don't think that his ask ends up that high. I think Winnipeg signs him.
Connor, moving on to the Olympics here, as Connor alluded to, we did get the news today. Anthony Cirelli out, Sam Bennett in. Is this a Mark Scheifele snub, and where does this rank for you on the shock meter?
I'm not shocked. I think Sam Bennett has a playoff resume that people are really impressed by. Hasn't been the greatest year down in Florida, but it hasn't been the greatest year up in Winnipeg either, right? Like this is a reasonable decision, I think. For me, like last year's Mark Scheifele, upon being snubbed, went on one of the most impressive heaters that you've ever seen on a President's Trophy winning team. His offense was incredible. They were winning their 5-on-5 minutes. It was one of Mark Scheifele's best years. Parts of this season have been that good from him, but I don't think he's kept up at that level. His offense has been a little streaky, still great. His defense has been a little suspect at times. I think Kyle Connors has faltered more. But you're not seeing those guys dominate their minutes. And for me, like it may be a Winnipeg unique problem because so little else has gone right. But 81 and 55 haven't met an offensive opportunity that they're not willing to stretch a shift for. And if you're going to be airdropped onto Team Canada with that quality of depth, where you're not one of the 6 most dominant players on that team, some of those habits probably cost you in Team Canada Brass's assessment of what makes an elite player. And I think Scheifele, because Canada is so good, is good enough to be on that team and find chemistry and do good things. But I'm not sitting here going he's snubbed. I don't think that he's beyond reproach as a player. He's just a great player in a sea of incredible ones that Canada has to choose from.
I'm glad you brought that up, Murat, because last night during the game, there was a very extended shift from the Scheifele-Connor duo. I believe Velarde was actually out there at the time. They were kind of hemmed in their own end, and it was like, oh, they're going to get this puck out, get it deep, and go off. Nope, they've got the energy for an offensive shift, apparently, and they kept it rolling. The players that are going to the Olympics, Josh Morrissey for Canada, of course, Kyle Connor Hrabchak for USA, Nino Niederreiter for Switzerland. I want to ask you first about Connor Hrabchak. His numbers aren't as sparkling as they were last season. They're not at Hart Trophy level form. Do you still see Connor Hrabchak being the game one starter for Team USA over Jake Ottinger and Jeremy Swayman?
I think that you got to give the defending Hart Trophy winner on a team that everybody can see the issues on day one. He took them to the gold medal game, right? Or whatever it was called for the Four Nations face-off, the final. And like made some incredible saves along the way. I think the style of that play, even as we talk about, all those fights and the Tkachuks and the dropping of the gloves and all that sort of stuff, I think he was seeing a lot more shots for Team USA than he was for Winnipeg against St. Louis or Dallas. And I think that that's a big part of his game. And I think that he played really well. I know that his numbers are off. And maybe, missing time for his scope and all that could play into it. Maybe it's an off year. I still think he's done too much over the last few years in the NHL that you've got to take a look at him. And then you've also, if I'm Team USA, I probably do make sure that in the opening round, I get a look at Ottinger and maybe even Swayman as well, because you might need them and they are also great.
Murat, I just wanted to bring this back up, rolling back to overtime. You mentioned doing a couple, maybe overthinking a little. Would it not be more advantageous for them to start Scheifele and Connor and give them the benefit of the additional shift rather than going with the Lowry Perfetti?
I think so. And my reasoning is this, somewhere you can math this out. And what's the play? The play is possibly a matchup, maybe, right, to get them away from whoever the other team plays. I don't really care about that in OT based on my confidence in Morrissey, Scheifele, and Connor's, the way they read off of each other. They're so good at puck possession once they get it. They're, in my mind, some of the best 3-on-3 players in the world in that skill game. And so there's that. There's the face-off angle, right? Okay, go get possession, win the draw, get those guys on because they're so good. And then, so in terms of that face-off angle, you're looking at the difference between Lowry's face-off percentage and Scheifele's face-off percentage, or even Taves if you want to use one of the league's best. And that difference is small. We're talking about 55 to 45 in a best-case scenario. We're doing coin flips here where really, in my mind, you want to get the guys who drive goals out there for as many minutes of OT as possible. So I think all the rest is just coaching hunches and matchups and all that sort of stuff. But as far as I can tell, the best play is just get your big guns out as often as you can and roll and hope and live and die with them because they're your best players and that's what they get paid for.
I'll throw it over to Connor for the next question. But yeah, I thought it was similar to how baseball batting lineups have evolved. You put your best players first so they get more at bats. And when you put them out second, you're saying, hey, these guys are only going to get maybe 2 shifts. And if you put them out first, you get 3. But you hope the game ends before that. And then it did end that one time where they put them out and Lowry Perfetti gave up the goal quick, and you lose without having your best players on the ice in overtime, which seems crazy.
Totally. And the Utah, no, totally, Remis. The Utah game, I think, is an example where Lowry gets scored on immediately. That's one you can point to. But I like the maximizing of the shifts that you bring up there. It's clearly an issue so far for the Winnipeg Jets this season. What was once a superpower, 8 straight post regulation losses. I want to ask you about another player, Murat. I think I asked you about him when you were on with us last week, Elias Salomonsson. I think it's fair to bring this up after a night where Luke Schenn gets posterized off the rush by Mikko Rantanen, and just talking about how comfortable Salomonsson is looking game by game. Do you think, post deadline, there are a lot of pending UFAs on this Jets blue line. You'd have to think that Salomonsson will be up for the remainder of the season after that. What are you seeing from Salomonsson in the last couple of games? And then on the deadline question, do you think he's up here the rest of the season once the Winnipeg Jets are back in action on February 25th?
Yeah, I expect that Winnipeg will move one of its UFA D, and I've thought that was Luke Schenn. And there was a time when it looked like Toronto was going to make the playoffs, and you had heard these reports from other, I wish I knew, was it Friedman, who was saying that last year there had been an effort by Toronto to get both Schenns or something to that regard. I hope that's correct. But I had heard that Toronto continued to show interest in that, and would have interest in Luke Schenn. He had played there before and did well for them at an earlier time in his career. So I thought, okay, there are ways that Winnipeg will be able to explore a trade for him. I think he's still the most likely guy to move, but I don't think Toronto's maintained a surefire playoff spot over in the East. So I don't know how that's all going to go. I think the Winnipeg needs to make room. I think that they are out of runway. And I also think that they're not oblivious to that. So I think that the room is going to get made. I think that Salomonsson has shown enough. I think that he is a threat to do something positive in the offensive zone, which Luke Schenn presently isn't. And while he did get beat in transition on that one play where that Stars rookie snuck in behind him, that was a good game by that player. I don't have his name offhand, but Dallas was dangerous against a lot of people, and one misplay is not a whole game. His possession numbers were good. His defensive impact was good. I think you've got a viable third pairing defenseman with some offensive and defensive ability here and now. And if you're thinking about helping Winnipeg down the line, you got to play him because he'll grow.
It's been interesting to watch his progression so far, and been great chatting with you, Murat. Thank you so much for taking the time to join Connor and I here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We can connect again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
There he is, Murat Atesh. Follow him on X, the Everything app, at WPG Murat. We've got a great conversation, bit of Winnipeg sports history coming up on the 1920 gold medal winning Winnipeg Falcons. But first, here's Hustler.
Every Winnipeg Jets game, the lines are presented by our friends at Clean Line Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical, your local leader for over 40 years for the best in plumbing services as well as heating and electrical. Your one-stop shop with over 40 years of experience, and of course, the official plumbing service of the Winnipeg Jets. Not only are they the leaders in residential and commercial services, but much like the Captain Adam Lowry, they have got your back covered 24/7, 365 with 24/7 emergency services. Mark the number down, 204-500-2001. When you need them, Clean Line is there. Your local leaders for plumbing, heating, and electrical. Check them out online at cleanline.ca. Great opportunity with all these games coming up. Lots of hockey as we push to the Olympic break, and the Olympics just around the corner, to get together with your gang at your local Boston Pizza for the big game. Enjoy ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And if it is a little too cold outside for you to make it out, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And as we count down to the Olympics, I know many of you are going to want to get geared up in red and white to support Team Canada at the Olympic Games. And You know where to do that. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, Winnipeg's ultimate sports superstore with the best in fan gear for both Team Canada merch as we get ready for Italy in the Olympic Games, as well as the Jets in the National Hockey League, Jays in Major League Baseball, all your favorite NFL teams, Raptors, NBA, Pro Soccer, and more. While you're there, check out their incredible hockey department, the best in town with amazing deals on sticks, skates, and equipment. And if you're planning a snowboard trip, Royal's been the leader in snowboards for 25 years. Check out the snowboard department today. It has been busy coming out of the holidays. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, just before we get to our next segment, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Pleased to be joined by a former executive director of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, Rick Brownlee, and Rod Paulson, hardcore Icelander. We're going to talk about the 1920 gold medal winning team, Winnipeg Falcons. They'll be honored at the Winnipeg Jets game on Wednesday. Welcome to the show, guys. Great to have you on here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, you bet. It's great.
You know, from when I think of Winnipeg Falcons, I remember them wearing the jerseys at the 2004 World Cup. But this is a pretty significant team in Winnipeg history and Canadian hockey history. When you guys want to answer, who were the 1920 Winnipeg Falcons and why does their Olympic gold still matter in Canadian hockey history?
Let's throw it to Rick, I think.
Yeah, I can take that on. First of all, a little backstory on the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. When the Winnipeg Tribune was in the Winnipeg Arena from 1955 to 79, they had a Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. There was no criteria or selection process or induction ceremony, but they put a bunch of things up on the wall and you were in the Hall of Fame sort of thing. And when Manitoba Sports Federation decided to start all over again in 1980, they chose to induct 10 individuals and one team. And the one team they chose out of all the teams in Manitoba sports history that you could induct and honor with that inaugural induction, they chose the 1920 Winnipeg Falcons, who were Olympic champions in Antwerp, Belgium.
I said something.
And yes, and Rod, you know, you've mentioned you're a proud Icelander. What was the moment that you had decided you need to step up and say, hey, we need to honor this team and recognize what they accomplished?
You'd say it was about 14 months ago when it occurred to me, looking at the calendar, that 2025 was going to be 150 years since the first Icelanders settled in Manitoba. And realized that, you know what, I've been talking the talk about being a proud Icelander all these years. I decided it was time to walk the walk and do something that would get noticed and further cement the importance of the Icelandic culture here in Manitoba. And you know, then the next thought came to mind, 2026 Olympic year, Winnipeg Falcons. This is a great story. Let's amp it up and see what I can do to help bring that into the picture for not just Icelandic hockey fans who are incredibly proud of the Falcons and that legacy and that story, but to all hockey fans who I think really need to understand that this was a very significant moment in hockey history that most people don't even know about.
Yeah, you know, this is Canada's first Olympic hockey gold, but as you mentioned, not a lot of people know about it. Rick, how did that happen, and why do you think it took so long for them to finally get some recognition?
Well, as I was telling you a little bit off the air, Michael, back in 1920, when they restarted the Olympics after the Great War, they chose Antwerp because it was a war-torn area of the Great War, just as they chose London in 1948 after the Second World War. but they were just the Olympics. They weren't the Winter Olympics, the Summer Olympics. They were just the Olympics, and you could choose whatever sports you wanted. And they decided at the time to choose ice hockey as one of their events. It was a full medal event. And then in 1924, they had a winter sports festival in Chamonix, France. And they decided 2 years after that, retroactively, to declare that the first Winter Olympic Games. So now we've had Summer and Winter Olympic Games ever since. And the mistake that Hockey Canada made in 2002 when they chose to honor the heritage of hockey, which is a good thing, they picked these, you remember these Toronto Granite jerseys? 1924, the Toronto Granites won the Olympic gold medal at those renamed Winter Olympic Games. And Hockey Canada in Toronto thought that that was the first ice hockey gold medal that was won. Well, the Icelandic community set them straight in 2002 and commissioned.
Only we can.
Yes, that's true. I know that through marriage. And they commissioned Luther Pokrant, a famous artist here in Manitoba, to do a commemorative mural. And this book cover here for Falcons Gold, that's his artwork there. And we had that mural at the MTS Center when it was still in the Moose days and things like that. And it was a massive thing, 5 by 10 foot sort of massive thing, or 20 by 8. Anyway, it was commissioned and put up there, and we had a display that the Icelandic community fundraised for under Dan Johnson and Dr. Irvin Olafsson. And it was in the MTS Center for quite a few years. And when they renovated that building, they moved it over to 145 Pacific and took up residence in the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. And the original artwork, there's also a copy one that we have still at 145 Pacific. And the original one went back to the Icelandic Museum, the new Icelandic Heritage Museum in Gimli. But I think that the true story of it goes beyond just the sports element of the hockey and making sure that Hockey Canada got it right and took pride in the fact that these people won. It's the story behind how they got there. I mean, we look at today's immigrants and the challenges they face and that sort of thing. In 1920, they weren't even going to allow the Winnipeg Falcons to play in the Senior Men's Amateur Hockey League. There was only one non-Icelander on the whole group, Huck Woodman. The rest were all of Icelandic descent. They looked different, they spoke different, and there was prejudice, and they tried to keep them out. Fortunately, they did win out, and probably their toughest opponent was the first one they had to beat was the Selkirk Fishermen for the right to play the Winnipeg Winnipegs to go on to compete for the Allen Cup. And they got by the Fishermen pretty handily. They smoked the Winnipeg Winnipegs by a 2-game total score of 15-0 and 17-2 or something like that. It was not even close. Then they had to get by Fort William, which is Thunder Bay, to have the right to travel to Toronto and play the University of Toronto varsity for the rights to the Allen Cup. And in those days, the Allen Cup was the senior championship, the amateur championship, and the winner of that got the right to represent Canada at the Olympics in 1920. And of course, they took 2 straight games quite handily off of Toronto and took the ship over and off to Antwerp and began their Olympic legacy.
Amazing to have the detail of these events over 100 years ago, and some incredible team names as well. Selkirk, Fishermen, and Winnipeg. Winnipegs. The teams will be honored. Winnipeg Falcons tomorrow night at the Game Canada Life Center. Jets, Canadians. What does it mean to you, Rod, to see this team being honored? And what's going to be done, and what will fans see who take in the game?
Well, it's going to be incredibly special. I'm already trying to imagine the emotion of seeing some of what will take place. It's going to start off, we're going to have an Icelandic singer. Sol James will be participating in the national anthem. At some point in the second period during a television timeout, there will be a video that the Jets have produced that will go on the big screen honoring the honoring the Falcons, and also recognition of the fact that in attendance tomorrow night, there's going to be several members of families representing three key members of the actual Falcons team. So it's for those people, for those family members, this is going to be incredibly emotional. This is going to be probably the highest profile event that their ancestors are going to be paid tribute to.
And when it's all, when after they watch the video and learn about the Falcons in this conversation, what do you hope fans take away and remember about the 1920 gold medal Winnipeg Falcons?
Well, first of all, at the event tomorrow, I'm hoping anybody who is attending that has even a sliver of Icelandic blood running through your veins to, show your stuff, bring a flag, bring a sign. Let's make some noise. And then beyond that, to me, this was all about, as I said earlier, about making sure that the Falcons legacy is known to a much broader group of hockey fans than just we Icelanders. So I'm hoping that that's what we take away. And I think with your help today and with the great words and insight that Rick had, that really defined a lot of the detail about what happened 106 years ago. I think I'm feeling pretty confident that I will have accomplished at least part of my goal.
And we haven't even talked about what they did at the Olympics, Michael. They went undefeated. They beat Czechoslovakia 15-0. They had a hard-fought battle over the Americans, which a lot of them learned their craft in Canada with a 2-0 shutout. And then they defeated the Swedish team by a score of 12-1. And there's some stories whether Canada allowed the Swedes to score the one goal or what. But they won the gold medal and only gave up one goal and scored multiple. And one of the players on the Swedish team wanted to buy Mike Goodman's skates, one of the speedy little forwards for the Falcons, because he was sure that there was motors in those skates to give him extra speed. He was so fast. So all these wonderful little stories about the Falcons. I hope I know the Jets do a great job with their video tributes, and I hope some of that stuff is brought to light.
Yeah,
amazing. Just add to that story.
Sure.
Sorry, just to what Rick was just saying, the skates of Mike Goodman. What he didn't tell the Swedes is that he was also the North American speed skating champion at the time. So that explained a little bit of why he was so fast.
Yes, when it was a big deal too. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it's pretty incredible that a team from Winnipeg of Icelanders went on to the Olympics, where they all took place. There was no summer or winter than 1920, and took home the gold medal, and we'll see them being honored tomorrow night for the Jets-Canadiens game. Rick and Rod, thank you so much for coming on today on Winnipeg Sports Talk, taking the time to tell the story. I can't wait to see what's going to take place tomorrow, because we'll be at the game with our group. So appreciate you guys, and great talking with you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
We're going back. All right.
Hey, what a great chat that was with Rod Paulson and Rick Brownlee. A bit of history, Winnipeg hockey, Winnipeg Falcons, 1920 gold medal Olympic team. Wasn't summer or winter Olympics then. It was just Olympics. And yes, the chat getting a kick out of some of the team names back in 1920, beating up on the Winnipeg Winnipegs. We need to bring that back, I think. Honor the past. Let's bring in, haven't talked to him for a while, Jake Bull and Moss of Coolbet. Some great games tonight. Also, Super Bowl week. Has Jake had a chance to delve into the 1,100 markets offered for Super Bowl 60? What is that, LV Super Bowl 60? I think I've figured that one out. Jake, what's going on, man? How you feeling here leading into the week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited. Obviously, my Patriots are in the big game. So, yeah, pretty excited, pretty nervous. Obviously, the spread doesn't do the Patriots any favors. But, they're not playing to cover the spread this week. They're playing to win a football game. And, yeah, we're going to have to see. I don't know. Like, you got to take it day by day when your team's in the bowl. And, it's really – it's really hard to gauge, what you're going to get, because obviously I think there's a lot of hype around the Seahawks, as they deserve it. The offense has been really strong. The defense has been, very impressive. Obviously outside of a couple Rams games where for whatever reason the Rams have found a ways to kind of beat them up a bit. But I believe in the preparation. I believe Vrabel and McDaniels are going to have the team ready to go. So listen, I'm excited for the game itself, but a lot to dive into props wise. Like you mentioned, Remo, over 1,100 markets on the Super Bowl. So yeah, you got to make sure you kind of get in your research early, especially because some of these markets are going to come off the board, as the week progresses. You look at something like the halftime show. Usually once rehearsal goes, those numbers come down because we already kind of know, we have an idea of what the first song is going to be and the last song and stuff like that. So if you're looking to bet some of those exotic novelty props, the fun stuff, make sure you get in on those early before they do come off the board and they may never return.
Jake, we'll get into some of the ridiculously fun markets in a moment here, but as someone who's dialed into the game, your Patriots are in the game. What's maybe like an in-game prop that's caught your eye, a touchdown scorer, a receiving prop, or something along those lines that's caught your eye early in the week here? I know you'll finalize your picks Friday at 10 a.m., but what's maybe an in-game prop that you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the touchdown scores, you're getting a lot of good value on a ton of Patriots. Ramondre is getting plus money at plus 143. Hunter Henry has been a good weapon for Drake May, plus 229. Listen, I think you're getting a lot of value in these markets for Patriots players, because the last couple of weeks they've played in some pretty ugly games and ugly weather games. So, you look at the Denver game, obviously there was one touchdown in that game scored by Drake May, I believe there was two touchdowns scored in that game. Cortland Sutton scored the first, and then Drake May, the rushing touchdown, it was decided by a field goal. The week before, Diggs had a touchdown, Booty had a touchdown, and I can't remember who scored the first touchdown in that game, but a lot of good value there, touchdown score-wise. You look at a Stevenson, plus 143, Henry, plus 229, Diggs, plus 243, Booty's over 3-1. So I think there's some good numbers there. Let's see some receiving yard totals. Look at Hunter Henry, less than 40 receiving yards is his number, 38.5. I think that's a really nice number. I think there's going to be a lot more passing in this game for the Patriots, especially if they're playing behind the eight ball. They're going to want to run the football. I totally understand that. But if they're chasing a game, Drake May is going to have to do a little bit more. And, assuming the weather is going to be better than it's been, than it was in Foxborough, than it was in Denver, I think you're going to see a bit more air attack, and I think there's some great value in a lot of the Patriots player props when it comes to the pass attack, including those receiving yards and then some of those receiving touchdowns as well.
Jake, one area I like to look at is MVP, and I think in the past it seemed like the MVP was going to be, if the Chiefs were going to win, it's pretty much going to be Mahomes. But I feel like if either team wins, maybe a better chance than past years of it being a non-quarterback for MVP. Where do you land on MVP this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to stray from the QBs, but always worth a sprinkle to get some value further down the board. I actually, I hang my hat on this winner. I had Cooper Kupp in the Rams Super Bowl as the MVP. I think he had over 100 yards in that game. He ended up winning the MVP, which was a pretty fun one to have. So, you look at a guy like JSN, is that a monster season for the Seahawks, arguably the best receiver in the NFL. The Seahawks go on to win this game. You're getting a nice number, JSN 5-1. Kenneth Walker, he's had some big games, although the Patriots run defense has been solid. Kenneth Walker finds the end zone a couple times. He's up to 7-1. From there, I don't know how much further I go down the list. I feel like if the Patriots are going to win this football game, it's probably going to be on the back of Drake May, and that's why you see him there second on the odds list at plus 225. I don't really know. The only other option I would think of is a main defensive piece. So you look at a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, 75-1, obviously very far down the list. Devin Witherspoon's had a great season for Seattle. Is he going to make a big enough impact? A pick six or, a fumble recovery return for a touchdown to win the MVP. He's 125-1. So, I mean, there's some shots you can take a little further down the board. Say you want to go the defensive route, But my eyes kind of move. If you're leaning Seattle, JSN 5-1, Kenneth Walker 7-1. I don't think you can really go wrong there. When it comes to the Patriots, I think it's Drake May or bust. If they're winning this football game, it's going to be on the back of that arm and Drake May finding a way to get it done.
Jake, I've been looking at some of the fun props, the ones that maybe aren't necessarily tied to the game, and one that came across. It's either new today or yesterday, the last time I looked, these cross sport props under the game where you can, New England Patriots first half total points or Canada number of gold medals at the Olympics, what will be higher, things like that. What are maybe some of the off the board, not talking about the actual football happening on the field, specials that you're looking into for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, cross sports are always fun. I know those popped up yesterday. So, the one you already mentioned, the first half total points and Canada number of gold medals. We also have the first half of the game total points, and then Canada and the U.S. combined gold medals. You also have a read on how what the scoring is going to look like. You think it's going to be low scoring? Maybe you lean the medals category. You think it's going to be a higher scoring game? Some better weather. Maybe you're leaning on more on the total points. You go to the specials tab. It's got some pretty crazy ones. I've been looking through these. The first TD celebration theme. Will it be a dance move or routine? That's 2-1. Acrobatics 3-1. A high knee run plus 350. An athlete tribute 4-1, a movie or a TV scene 6-1, and a real or imaginary prop 8-1. Listen, I don't know after the first TD celebration who's going to decide what the winner of that is, but some very fun stuff. Will Bill Belichick attend the game with Jordan Hudson, his girlfriend? That's 2-1. In under that specials category, you go to the post game, you can see the Gatorade color, always a fun one if you want to get in on the action there. You can see the first mention by the MVP in his acceptance speech, religious reference, teammates, team, city fans. And then I already mentioned some halftime stuff, which is available there as well. Bad Bunny, first song, Bad Bunny, last song played. What else do we have? Well, Bad Bunny's, what will be on his head? Will he be wearing a hat? Will he be wearing no hat? The total viewership for the halftime show. Listen, I got to give props to our guys on the Coolbet Sportsbook side of things. They do an unbelievable job at the Super Bowl. They message us every single day like, hey, what are you seeing out there? What are other books posting that we can kind of meet and match? I know there's some other specials too, like repeat specials of, stuff that has happened in previous Super Bowls. Just trying to see if I can find it here. Sorry, guys. I can't find it at the moment, but there's basically ones like, will the Seattle Seahawks attempt to pass on the 1 yard line? Something they did in the previous Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl. And my favorite one that I mentioned, any player, this is a fun one too, any player to have a completed pass, reception, and rush attempt. So, I don't know, JSN going to get a pass. He's going to get a reception for sure. Is he going to have a rush attempt at some point in the game? That's 7-1 in the player specials category. Listen, you got to almost take your time with this. Set aside a little bit of time, put aside some money for some fun stuff, and then put aside your bigger bets for something a little bit more serious, whether it's player props or something along those lines.
Sorry, I'll let Remis go on the next question here. But as we were scrolling through there, I saw Chris Collinsworth to say, now here's a guy at -175. That is going to be awesome. But Remis, you go ahead on the next question.
I was gonna move on to Olympics because the first events are starting tomorrow. But I know Coolbet's got a great deposit bonus that you wanted to let our listeners know about heading into Super Bowl 60.
Yeah, listen, obviously a busy week. We're kind of heavy Super Bowl from our standpoint in terms of promo, but like you mentioned, Remo, Olympics is coming. So, maybe you're not into football, but you're like, oh, I'd like to get a little action on the Olympics. So yeah, we have a exclusive deposit bonus that we're running kind of with you guys. I got it up on the screen there. So very simple. It's for returning cool bettors. If you're a new cool better, you want to join, WST is the code you're going to use. You get 100% deposit bonus up to $200. But if you're returning, you've already used your initial deposit bonus. This is a chance to kind of get back in the action, add a little extra money for a big weekend and, a big couple weeks, if we're being honest, in the sports world. So your next deposit, if you use the code WST SB60, Super Bowl 60, you'll get 100% deposit bonus up to $60. So if you deposit 60, you get $60 on top from us in bonus. And then you got $120 to play with for the Super Bowl. Yeah, maybe you don't want to deposit 60. Maybe you just want to deposit 20. We'll give you 20 on top of that. You got $40 to play with in the Super Bowl. Do with it as you wish. You don't have to use it for the Super Bowl either. Just because it's WST SB60, like Remis mentioned, we got the Olympics coming up. We'll have finally getting some NHL players there, which is really exciting. But yeah, I mean, listen, you only get to use it once, so use it wisely, and it'll be available right up until kickoff. I believe once kickoff comes, it'll no longer be available. So make sure you get in on that for this weekend or this week, and use it as you wish anywhere in the Coolbet Sportsbook.
You mentioned busy weeks coming up, Jake. Olympics, we got World Baseball Classic, Stanley Cup playoffs down the road, golf. Is there anything for Olympics that's catching your eye early here, as the first events go tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I haven't done a full deep dive of the Olympics, if I'm being honest, but our offering, is really, really impressive, especially you look at something like curling, right? We got Olympics, I guess, mixed doubles starting tomorrow, which is a very unique Olympic event. We don't see mixed doubles a whole lot throughout the year if you're following curling, but when you get to the Olympics, it's very interesting because it's only two curlers. So, someone throws the rock, and then a lot of the times the thrower will also have to jump up and grab the broom and sweep as well. If you go to our offering for that, we have our winner offering. Italy's the favorite, plus 120. We have a top two, a top three. So to medal, Canada right now, for argument's sake, plus 115 to medal, just outside. They're fourth on the odds list to medal in the mixed doubles curling. To win a silver medal, to win a bronze medal, to place fourth, which would be just outside the medals, would be a tough one. But if you want to bet that, available. Round robin wins for all the countries that are competing. That one starts tomorrow afternoon, Remo. I think you said a noon your time, 1 o'clock Eastern. Obviously, we can go to men's hockey, women's hockey. I think those are going to be some big ones. Canada right now is the favorite in men's hockey, plus 120. USA right behind them at plus 215. The women's, I believe USA is actually the favorite on that side of things. Sorry, I'm just slowly trying to find my way through the site here. So many offerings when it comes to the Olympics. The women's, though, yeah, I think the women's Canadian team is actually second on the list when it comes to hockey. They are plus 125. So you could pair the Canadian women, if you think they can find a way to get it done, and the Canadian men, and you would get something like, let me see here. Canadian men and Canadian women to win, plus 395. So if you want to, wear your Canadian flag on your sleeve and root for your Canadian hockey teams, that's available. You can do that with, a variety of markets for the Olympics. We also have the Canadian specials. We kind of mentioned them in the cross sports, but the medal specials right at the top. To have the most gold medals, Canada's fourth on the list at 14 to 1. To have the most medals, they're 20 to 1. And then Canada medal special specifically, number of gold medals over under 8.5 right now. If you want to root on Canada to go over 8.5 gold medals, that's a minus 115. If you don't think they can get the job done, minus 115 on the other.
Jake, when looking at the women's Olympic hockey, it's kind of crazy. I know USA and Canada run and have ran that for a long time now, but USA minus 147, Canada plus 125, and then the third highest odds to win the women's Olympics ice hockey, Finland and Czechia, 50 to 1. So it's a 2-horse race for that. When looking, the Olympics are coming up, the Super Bowl, looking to tonight's hockey, what kind of stands out to you, or really any sports tonight on the schedule that you'll be taking a look at?
Yeah, listen, I mean, naturally, it's disaster in Leaf world right now. So naturally my eyes go to there. It's Leafs at Oilers. Of course, they won against Vancouver in shootout a couple nights ago, and then they beat Calgary last night. And all of a sudden, the delusional fans are like, "Oh, why don't they go take a run at this after the Olympic break?" I think it's the dumbest thing ever. I think it's definitely sell territory, especially some of the value you're going to get on some of these, pending free agents. So naturally, what would be the worst case scenario for this Leafs road trip? It'd be 2-2. They lost to Seattle in the first game, won the next two. They're probably losing tonight in Edmonton. Pretty juicy number, minus 182. But even Edmonton on the puck line, I wouldn't mind. Minus 1.5 is plus 127. McDavid, always a top performer against Toronto, a hometown guy in Toronto, and he tends to really take it to them. He's minus 104 to score tonight. I couldn't believe his 2+ point number, minus 145 to record 2+ points. I think I lean more towards the goal. I think there's a bit more value there with McDavid. And if you want to get real cheeky with it, you could go 3+ points at plus 215 for McDavid. He's always a big performer against Toronto. Besides that, I mean, we got a pretty busy slate like all week. You get a decent amount of games. The Penguins, they've been pretty solid. They lost their last one. So I don't mind them in a bounce back spot on the road in Long Island tonight, minus 109. Caps as a road dog, I don't mind either, plus 113. A lot of good value out there, I'd say, on the NHL board. Sabres beat Florida last night. They're in Tampa tonight. That might be a tough one, but Tampa, without Point, without Cirelli now, it looks like Sam Bennett will replace Cirelli at the Olympics for Team Canada already. They've already announced that. So, Tampa down a couple guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo kind of keeps it rolling at a decent number on the road, plus 162. Listen, looks like I like a lot of road dogs besides the Leafs tonight. I don't know if that's a good sign or not.
Well, Jake, that Buffalo one is interesting. Missing Point, missing Cirelli. They're already missing a bunch of guys. Buffalo, they're hot, as you said. So, been great talking with you, Jake, and I'm going to enjoy perusing these 1,000 plus offerings on the Super Bowl all week leading up to kickoff. Thanks again, and we'll catch you on WST Winners Back special big game edition on Friday. You, Huss, and Pat reunited.
Yeah, it'll be good to see Huss back from Costa Rica. The last thing, Remo, if you don't mind, for the Super Bowl, we do have a social media campaign running. If you go to our Twitter page right now, the pinned tweet, we're doing something called the 60+ Club. So you bet a player prop. Minimum bet's $25. You bet on a player prop for the Super Bowl. If your player scores a 60+ yard touchdown in the Super Bowl, you'll be added to a $5,000 jackpot. So, say me and Remis and Connor, we all take Rashid Shaheed as our player prop. We post the player prop. We reply to the tweet, fill out the little Google form we have there. And then if Rashid Shaheed has a 60+ yard touchdown in the game, Connor, Remo, and I would all split the $5,000 bonus jackpot that we're rolling out. So, big jackpot. We haven't done something like this in a while, and in recent Super Bowls is something new we're trying. So make sure if you're going to bet on the Super Bowl, you're getting in on that action over on Twitter. Reply to that tweet, fill out the form, and make sure you're locked in for the 60+ club this weekend for the big game.
Perfect. Thanks so much for the heads up on all the promos and all the great offerings. Thanks for taking the time, Jake. We'll stay tuned Friday, 10 a.m. here on YouTube, and also available on podcast for the big game WST winners. Talk to you later, Jake.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys.
Perfect. There he is, Jake Bolin Moss. Follow him on X at Jake Bolin Moss. And Connor, we are winding it down with the show. We should mention, looking forward to the Olympics starting up tomorrow, but tough news for American skier Lindsey Vonn trying to make a comeback, announcing that she's going to try to, she tore her ACL, but is still going to give it a go. That's got to be tough there with torn ACL, doing something like downhill skiing.
That's incredible and insane at the same time. Like, I read a story. It's completely ruptured ACL. Like there are different levels you can tear your ACL: slight tear, complete tear. This is not like a halfway tear of the ACL. It's a completely ruptured ACL. She says she's just going to wear a brace. She skied on it and felt okay. So, I mean, you'd think you'd need your ACL, a major part of your knee, Remis, for downhill alpine skiing. But I don't know. What if she wins gold? Like, wouldn't that be incredible? That headline really caught my attention earlier today.
Yeah, and one other thing that's catching people's attention, this Connor McDavid, Dear Canada column, self-written reflection in the Players Tribune. I would recommend everyone go out and read this. However, I mean, sir, not however, but I think reading it would just get you way more fired up. I'm starting to get really excited here for a little best on best. Haven't had it since 2014. You know, we had the taste of the Four Nations last year, but I think this is going to be really awesome. Nice to see the players also, you know, they're the ones who push for this.
Totally. And this article, I read it last night. It's awesome. It's basically a love letter to hockey. It's a love letter to Edmonton that he says, you know, he reinforces that he wants to win there so badly. He wants to play so badly. He goes against what everyone says of him, that he needs a break. You know, he's played so much hockey and done the losing in the finals. He needs a break. He needs a reset. He said, no, I don't care about that. I just want to play hockey and I just want to win in Edmonton. And then at the end, he talks about the Olympics. And yeah, Remis, I mean, if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, this article is probably the greatest thing you've ever read in your entire life. But as a Canadian hockey fan and someone who's going to be cheering for this guy in a week, you know, the final paragraph here, he goes, I really cannot wait for these Olympics. I'll be bringing everything I've learned to Italy to represent my country. I've waited a long time to say that. I don't think it will really hit me until I get over there. I was on the U17s for the first time when I wore a Canada jersey. I've dreamt of this moment ever since, pulling on that sweater, being in a room with different generations of great players like Crosby, McKinnon, and Celebrini, and all of those guys. Interesting that he noted Celebrini with the great generations of players, certainly on his way. He says, it's such an honor, really. I think best on best, country against country. That's where hockey becomes something else. It reminds us of the shovels in the snow, the rollerblades, and the road rash. I can't wait to get in that room, and I can't wait to play more hockey. So I was reading that last night, and had me, you know, feeling like the chatter earlier on that said Canada's going to steamroll everyone. Absolutely. Connor McDavid's fired up. So am I. I can't wait for best on best hockey at the Olympics. I've been waiting for this for so long. We all have. 2014 was the last time. I can't wait for it to be back. And that first game, 9:30 in the morning against Czechia on February 11th, I absolutely cannot wait, Remis. And this article by McDavid, great job by him, just gets me more fired up.
Here's the schedule for tomorrow. For Wednesday, are you going to be waking up 4:30 a.m. for men's downhill skiing official training, or, Connor, not going to bed yet? Whichever. Maybe you'll be switching to Italy time for 2 weeks or 3 weeks starting Wednesday at 12:05. There will be curling, Canada and Czechia in mixed doubles around robin session 1. And luge official training as well at 12:30. CBC Gem, exceptional app. I would get that on your streaming device or website or tablet. As probably watching. We'll have it on during, be reacting live. It was so much fun watching the Summer Olympics while doing the stream, having it on. I remember we watched Skylar Park get her medal in the Olympics. We were all here. So tune in. We'll have a lot of fun during these upcoming weeks. But yes, the hockey certainly will be primary focus, but there's so many great events and ones, you don't really pay attention to all the time, but do come onto the forefront. So we'll see some new stars made, possibly in speed skating. I had a great conversation on Friday about that. And again, So snowboarding, skiing, figure skating, curling, a lot of great events. Can't wait for it to kick off. Opening ceremonies on Friday.
Yeah, Remis. And the hockey games, at least for Canada, are all at pretty reasonable times. Like, they're not insanely early. Friday, February 13th, though, Sweden plays Finland at 5 a.m. in a game. And that one, like Finland and Sweden is a great rivalry. They're in the same group. That will probably decide the winner of their group too. That's a game I'll really want to be up for at 5 a.m. I'm not that big of a morning person, especially 5 in the morning, but maybe I'll have to set my alarm and just, do an afternoon nap or something. Canada plays Switzerland that day at 2. So maybe there's enough time in between to sneak in a nap before we probably go live early that day. I don't know. There's the Olympic schedule, the time zones, throwing everything off, but it's the best for any kind of sports fan, because not only are we getting best on best at hockey and the women's hockey, of course, but like you said, Remis, there are so many incredible sports. Everything is so much fun to watch. And this is the Winter Olympics, where Canada always has a good shot. So we'll be cheering on all of our Canadian athletes here in the next couple of weeks in Milan, and looking forward to Mike McIntyre's coverage and all the other local reporters that are out there covering the games.
Should be awesome. And yeah, you mentioned, Sweden, Finland. I remember 2010 Olympics. It was in Vancouver. Some of the games were on very, very late, and I remember staying up, I don't know, till like 1 or 2 a.m. or something, watching Russia, Slovakia, went to a shootout. One of my favorite, I think I mentioned on the show before, I don't care. One of my favorite games of all time. Ray Ferraro was doing the broadcast, calling out Pavel to meet what move he was going to do in the shootout, as they were teammates in LA. Well, that's been it for this show, Connor. It's been so much fun chatting with you for the last week while Hustler was away. He'll be back tomorrow. We'll be teeing up the Jets and Habs. Should be a great one at Canada Life Center to wrap up the pre-Olympic schedule. So first of all, thank you to our sponsors. How could I forget about them? Without their support, we would not be here today talking to you, listening on podcast or watching on YouTube. Winnipeg Jets, Uptown Alley, Rolly's Transfer, Safe-Hotel Dental, Canadian Club, Princess Auto, Chud's Power Sports, Manitoba Battery, Clean Line, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and Cool Bet. Mentioned that deposit bonus, WST SB60. Use that up until kickoff. Double your deposit up to $60. And thank you to our guests, Dennis Bernstein of the Fourth Period, Murat of The Athletic, Rod Paulson and Rick Brownlee, and of course Jake Boland-Moss of Coolbet. So for Connor Hrabchak, I'm Michael Remis. This has been another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye-bye.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.